Many people out there are saying that there's an admiral that is on a witch hunt looking to put every aspect of blame onto this junior sailor based off circumstantial evidence. Now, if you forget, back in 2020, we had the Bonhomme Richard, which went up in flames and no one knew what was going on over in San Diego. However, as that dust is settled and the ship is now being scrapped and put away for, I forget how many dollars, it looks like the case is finally being heard in court, and that junior sailor is finally getting his day out there, which some believe he should never even have to because there is not much to be held against him. I also want to annotate, I've made several videos about this. I will link back to those in the playlist for this video if you want to see how this case has slowly unfolded since 2020 and where we are at today, almost 2 years later. If you guys forget, this is what the guy looked like, right? And then it says here, Ryan Sawyer Mays waived his right to a jury and told Captain Derek Butler that he wants to rule at the end of court-martial, which started Monday at Naval Base San Diego. So he doesn't even want to get this into a jury situation, and I have some thoughts on that. It says, according to prosecutors, Mays was a young, arrogant sailor angry about being assigned to the deck duty after failing to become a Navy SEAL, and he made the Navy pay in a big way. And it says quotations, and this is from the prosecution. Your Honor, it was a mischievous act of defiance gone wrong, Commander Leo O'Brien told the judge during opening statements from the prosecution. To give the background story, if you fail out of Bud's basic underwater demolition school, then you have no job to go back to. They are essentially going to make you what we call needs of the Navy. That puts you in predicaments like this guy, where you end up going into this like generalized undesignated area where you're made to do various tasks, which could be manual labor and have no high speed type of environment or importance that somebody might have expected if they were trying to be a Navy SEAL or some kind of other special operations community. If you like this video and other videos I do, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, all those great things. It does help out the channel. May's Military Defense Counsel Lieutenant Taylor Haggerty countered in her opening remarks that it's the Navy who is wrong. Haggerty said investigators concluded Mays did it before the probe was complete and then ignored evidence and witness accounts that didn't fit into the narrative so they could find a scapegoat for the loss of $1 billion ship that was mismanaged by senior officers. If you've watched other videos, and I highly recommend you go back, they are basing a lot of this based off testimonial because per a lot of this investigation, there is no physical evidence that's out there. There are so many different flammable things that are on that ship that could have ignited very easily, especially as the ship was under what they called a maintenance or yard period, where there would be obviously lots of hazards that were going on as there's construction and things that are happening that would allow the ship to get back on the water. Now, looking at this, on top of that, and the circumstantial evidence that there is a guy that has been testifying against this that has reversed his statements. 1 second he was saying he was wearing a certain uniform. The next second said he was wearing a different set of a uniform. And those stories did not match up. But according to this article, he's now 100%. His clarity is out there. Has he been coached? Once investigators pinned the blame on Mays, who known for being sarcastic and flippant, nothing else mattered, Haggerty said. Just because the government ignores pieces of evidence, it doesn't mean the court should. She told the court, Haggerty told the judge by the end of the trial, which is supposed to last 2 weeks, you will exonerate the sailor and find him not guilty of both charges. And this is important because throughout this, you're going to hear about this story and how everything about this is circumstantial, testimonial, and I would say this is a formal legal proceeding which has to have proof. There's all these definitions of beyond reasonable doubt, etc., etc., etc. But looking at that, it's like, how is this going to be proven if there is no physical evidence? Yes, he has a reference to a movie talking about napalm on his Instagram, and yes, he may have been pissed off about being in a deck department, but that also doesn't necessarily mean he is the exact person that started started this fire, and no one will actually be able to know. And I believe there should be a day in court where this kid has a chance to actually prove himself, because that is important, and people do have rights whether you were in the military or outside the military. It continues to say Mays is charged with aggravated arson and the willful hazarding of a vessel. He has denied any wrongdoing. The prosecution has presented no physical evidence proving that Mays, 21, set the USS Bonhomme Richard on fire. And it appears that this kid has a lot more people in his corner vouching for him than people would think. And that even comes from people that were his prior attorneys. And it looks like he's been afforded counsel, and I would hope, I don't know if he's able to afford any other counsel or if there's anybody he's reached out to defend him further, but you'll see why this can kind of be construed or understood from many people outside as it could be a witch hunt. Gary Barthel, his civilian lawyer who represented Mays at a preliminary hearing to determine if there was probable cause to send the case to trial. By the way, there was no physical evidence, reminders there, said the Navy judge overseeing the process recommended the case not go to court-martial, but Vice Admiral Steve Kohler, the former commander of San Diego-based U.S. 3rd Fleet, who had the final say, ordered the court-martial. I honestly can say that from my perspective on this, I think any jury, anybody looking at this case would have a hard time prosecuting this kid and finding him guilty just based on circumstantial evidence, and that there is no physical evidence out there. And, you know, you would look at any case and a lot of people would say you need to do more research. You need to gather more evidence. You need to put yourself in a better position to actually get a true case served with justice, because if not, you're not going to get another day in court with this kid. Bethel said the Navy case relies largely on the account of a fellow sailor who has acknowledged changing it repeatedly. He said investigators brushed aside the fact that the lithium batteries were stored next to a highly combustible material such as cardboard boxes in violation of ship protocol. Barthel said he offered his services pro bono because he thought Mays would not be court-martialed, but he does not have the time with his full-time practice to continue to represent the sailor who's using military counsel. Still, he said he is speaking out because the Navy case is unjust. You have to imagine, if you are some of the leadership of this fleet and one of your main vessels that is worth billions, right? As far as what it's able to do, project power, it was going to be up next in rotation for a deployment, most likely after the yards were done and getting worked up and making sure it could actually go out and accomplish a mission, as that would allow a rotation for another group to come back and that those ships be repaired and maintenance, etc. You know, it is important because now you're putting strain on other parts of the fleet, and that is a big responsibility that many people don't want to have to answer to, and obviously are going to try to point the appropriate amount of blame where it should be. They've already fired the triad of that command because there were so many things found that were wrong, as far as just like these minor infractions that you see here, along with various other things. And remember that guy that changed his story? He's even said more and said, the prosecution's witness, Pastor Third Class Kenji Velasco, blamed the nervousness for the changes to his story and said during the preliminary hearing, he was now 100% sure that he saw Mays descend the ship's lower vehicle storage area on the day of the fire. This would seem kind of backwards, as you would think, like, when you initially saw Mays be down in this stairwell or ladder well or whatever, and it was only a day after or whatever, your memory would be concrete clear. And then as time goes on, you might deviate from that story as your memory gets shaky. But I don't think it would work the other way, where your memory becomes stronger after the event. I'm just saying. While investigators said Mays set the fire, a Navy report last year concluded that the inferno was preventable and unacceptable, and there were lapses in training, coordination, communications, fire preparedness, equipment maintenance, and overall command and control. And that was blatantly obvious, as the scene that was being unfolded over at Naval Base San Diego showed nobody had coordination or was actually taking over of the situation. That included the commanding officer, which is why people were so upset, because it was like he laid there like a fish and never actually intervened and started coordinating services, and it was a cluster. You know what I'm saying? This brings us to your ideas and your perception of this case as it unfolds. Do you think that this guy Mays is actually being a scapegoat, as many people are claiming, and this admiral is pushing for this trial to occur, even though there's no physical evidence and most of it was destroyed based off of firefighting that had to occur to try and save the ship, as any normal person would do. And then on top of that, you know, it's just circumstantial. So where do you lie on this? Do you think that's where he's at? Or do you believe that this kid could be tried just based off of his Instagram post saying that he pretty much has affiliation with being a Inferno type guy? Then on top of that, his behavior of acting out, maybe not being the best sailor and being disgruntled. I really want to see where we're going to see this in 2 weeks, because we're going to have a final verdict of what happens as the judge makes their judgment on this. Let me know what you guys think down below. Also, if you guys have other topics you want me to cover, hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.